Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of We Are the Night, the Batman podcast. It's me, Phil. Lilith could not join us, holidays, and she's traveling all over the place. But I have a special guest. I've been waiting a while for this one. Joining me is Mr. John Jackson Miller to talk about his new novel, Batman Resurrection, that takes place between the original Batman 1989 movie and Batman Returns. So, I read like your foreword and everything in this book, and I see you feel the same way about the original Batman movie that I do. I mean, I was 11 years old, when it first came out. I just tried to explain to people, I'm like, oh, it was the biggest thing. And before that, like, I had just started collecting comics within like a year of the movie coming out. So
yeah,
and before that, all my references to Batman were like reruns of Batman 66 and Super Friends episodes. So I saw this movie, I was like, this is like the comic. 11-year-old me, this is like the comics.
Yeah. Well, that was the big change. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I actually have started doing a slideshow for various conventions where I talk about the Batman that was in the public eye, and then the Batman that we knew in comics, being really two different characters. And of course, it wasn't just Batman, but it was also comics in general. That comics had matured and diversified, and we gotten comics on all sorts of different topics in the 70s and leading into the 80s as the comic shops come in to sort of supplant the newsstand, and there's no comics code on the comics that are going to the comic shops. But the general public was still very much stuck in Adam Westworld, for want of a better term.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was the first time. In 1966, when that show came out, that was the first time that Batman surpassed Superman in sales. It was the first time that Batman became number one. And it was because it was a fad, and a lot of 1960s things blazed white hot briefly, and some of them went away and then some of them didn't. I mean, the Beatles stuck around. Star Trek ended up sticking around. Batman's run at the top of the charts lasted only the 1 year in comics, and then of course on the TV show, it's done after 2, and it's because there was really a fad aspect to it. But the number of people who saw that show and then also saw it in syndication was in the tens of millions, and so. That was really what was imprinted on people's minds about what comics were, and about what Batman was, and we have a bit of a chance to turn that around in the general public's eye. I don't really think Wonder Woman on TV and the Marvel TV series that they did didn't really change that imprint a whole lot. Mm-hmm. The Richard Donner Superman does take a shot at it, but of course that doesn't last as an impression either, as we get into movies that are successively less serious and less successful, and so it's really the case that pretty much your last two superhero, or at least comics related feature films before Batman 89, we're talking about Superman 4: The Quest for Peace and Howard the Duck. So these are not a template on which success was written, and it was the case that for always we had in comics a persecution complex. Comics were going to rot your brain in the 50s and make you a juvenile delinquent. And even into the 80s, it was considered, by the general public to be, this nerdy thing that nobody did. And so kids like me were hiding their their interest in these things. We were going to conventions to commune with other people. We were going to comic shops to commune with other people. We hid behind the idea that, hey, we're investing in the comics and we're not just reading them. But the general public still had sort of this different feeling about it. And so it really kind of stung for years when every time there would be any progress in terms of, hey, comics are a cool thing or whatever, the newspaper headline would always still have Biff Pow Bam.
Oh yeah.
Or holy guacamole, Batman. Comics for grown-ups are coming, or something like that.
I remember so much promotion for the movie. Every other newscaster was Biff Bam Pow Batman coming to the movies. Yeah,
because that was exactly because that was what they were familiar with, and I think it was something where when the and of course the production was so fraught getting to the screen. Michael Uslan, who has been a major supporter of the book. The executive producer of the movies, along with Benjamin Melniker, was fighting to try to get a serious take on the character. And there's sort of that, existential panic in '88 as we've got, Tim Burton, comedy movie director, and, Michael Keaton, comic actor. Associated with this picture. And even though both had, shown a propensity to be able to do some more serious things, it was something where, in the magazine that I would later go on to write for, Comics Buyer's Guide, I did a rundown on social media on my Blue Sky about a month ago, where I just went down all of the comments, the negative comments that had come in beforehand. People worried about Keaton, people worried about Burton, people worried about even Jack Nicholson, not taking this very seriously, and people saying things, credible people in the business, saying things like, this is going to set the perception of us back by 20 years, 30 years. Just really, it took some calm heads to say, hey, look, this is something we're going to have to wait and see on, what I think one of the things we did get out of that is we got the trailer that was rushed out, would have been this time of year, December of '88. A trailer that has no music in it, does not have the name of the film, does not have the logo, does not have anything but coming next summer to it. But that it was attached to Tequila Sunrise, which ironically I think has Michelle Pfeiffer in it, and you had people going to that movie just to see the trailer because it was this revelation. And that really sort of begins the counter buzz, and then once we get into the the big promotional machinery, and we get the real trailer in the spring of '89, we really have this feeling that a big event is coming along, and it's going to be completely different than anything we've ever seen.
Oh yeah. I'm just the hype. I try to explain to people the hype on this thing. I mean, all the companies wanted to be connected to this movie. You saw footage of people shaving bat logos into the side of their head. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, though, there was still a bit of apprehension. When we say all the companies, I think I've got the cup back here from Taco Bell. Taco Bell was the fast food license, and that's kind of like a third tier, license in terms of they couldn't get McDonald's, they couldn't get Burger King, they couldn't get Wendy's. They're kind of going down the list. It did send people like me to Taco Bell way more than we ever went. But it didn't have total buy-in from a lot of Madison Avenue yet, who had bought into it. the comics distributors, Diamond and Capital City, their catalogs for months had been full of merchandise saying, okay, you need to actually stock up. You're going to be the place that's going to have all the Batman stuff, even when everybody else doesn't. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there is sort of a gap there, as I recall, June into the beginning of July, where you're still not quite able to, walk through a mall and avoid the logo. Mm-hmm. But by the middle of July, Spencer Gifts and all of those places that don't usually carry stuff, Walgreens at that point, drugstores, they've got the posters. They've got everything. And then, of course, by the time, Batman Returns rolls around, this is a proven quantity, and they start right at the top with McDonald's. Oh, yeah. And that ends up being sort of the undoing of the whole thing.
Yeah, the dark movie, I think it's the Happy Meal toys, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, the book, some of it, you've detailed some of it in here. I forget if it's the foreword or at the end, but
it's at the end. I think.
Yeah. They came to you with the idea for this, and you decided to put it between the two movies. Like, how much input did they give you? Like, did you have to use certain characters? Did you have to? It was just free reign. It was just it has to be set in this world.
We had a talk beforehand, with Warner Brothers and with Andrew Marino at the DC office, because of course the Sam Hamm and Joe Quinones, their comic series was already ongoing, we didn't initially set out to say, okay, people are always asking, is it in continuity or is it all canon or whatever? Well, the word canon, that's beyond my pay grade in this. I don't really get to decide. What I can say is that what I wanted to do was not overwrite anything that they had already done. Mm-hmm. I wanted to not duplicate anything that they had already done. And I wanted to reduce confusion by staying out of their way. And it just happened to be also that I thought the strongest possible place that I could put a story, or series of stories, as we're not just doing one, is in between the pictures. I remember saying, let's hug the first movie. Mm-hmm. That's the thing most people have seen, and this gives us the opportunity to use characters that we met in Batman but didn't see in Batman Returns, mm-hmm. and also use characters that we met in Batman Returns but didn't see in Batman, and it also synced up with questions that I had going back to my column in my college newspaper in my review of the movie in 1989. I thought there were things that hadn't been explained by the story on screen that sort of provided springboards for somebody to use at some point. Mm-hmm. And I said, as we're discussing, once we had decided where we're going to put it, then I came back and I said, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to do, sort of my Joker Lives scenario where I explore some of these issues. I use characters, in particular, one major character that I knew was not coming up in the Batman '89 comics in Clayface.
Yes,
and we'll go from there. With regard to the continuity, I again, without saying anything in terms of a commitment, to always. Syncing things up. I like it when things, don't conflict. And mm-hmm. Certainly, as Batman '89 Echoes has continued, and the fifth issue just came out yesterday as we're recording this.
Yes.
That series was developing as I was writing this novel. It's going to be the reverse case with the Revolution novel, which is our sequel, whereas what was a loose continuity is going to tighten up. because I now know everything that has hit the page.
So are you saying you're gonna, for the next novel, there's gonna be elements from the comic in there too?
I will say that there are elements for the comic in the first book.
Yeah.
I guess what I would say is questions that people have had about various character references and things like that. Where there do seem to be overlaps. That's all handled. I've already sorted all that out.
And again, putting it between the two movies, I love it because you tie up a lot of stuff. It's like where did Vicky go, and again, before Batman Returns, you get the rise of Max Schreck, and where did the rest of the Joker's goons go, and all. Yeah. So, what was I thinking? I had a question for you. Oh, but and it's not you don't have to, I don't think, but I would recommend going to watch the first movie before reading this book, so you pick up on all the Easter eggs. So. As someone who, as soon as that VHS came out, who watched it every day the summer it came out, I think I got all the Easter eggs from the two goons on the roof in the beginning of the first movie to Knox. I still didn't get that grant.
Well, that's the sort of thing that I would do, because I did see the movie in the theater 12 times. And so, much of the dialogue was automatic to me, but I needed to know something specific things like, okay, what were the names of the guys on the roof? What were, and some of those things are not in the picture. Some of them are in just the shooting script, or they're in the adaptation. They're in the novel adaptation by Craig Shaw Gardner. And of course it was a comics adaptation as well. And so, I do have some pulls from some of these things. But various things like, the actual beats of things that are happening in the cathedral, in the cathedral, the fight scene, the order of events that happened, and who survived that fight. I had to actually go through and frame through that scene to see, okay, who do I got that's still alive and kicking? And really, it's only the boxer that you can kind of look at that end that he has and say, okay, yeah, he's gone. But everybody else is a survivor, and this is sort of the thing that you kind of do. I was noting, as a lot of people did, that Alicia Hunt, the girlfriend of Jack Napier, she shows up in Batman 89 Echoes, and the thing is, if you go back and watch the movie, we only have the Joker's word for what happened to her, and whether or not that particular thing was fatal or not. The movie doesn't tell us, and so in all manner, the movie is and this is kind of how we work it with other franchises I work with. The movie is the source document.
Sorry. Sorry, a little under weather here. All right.
It's December.
Oh yeah. Yes, and I have a child, so stuff gets brought home. You said you saw this in the theater 12 times. So this summer they were playing a bunch for Batman Day. They were playing a bunch of movies at the theater. I got to take my son, who is the same age I was when I first saw this, to the theater to see this summer. So. And it was magical for me too, seeing this again on the big screen for the first time since 1989. I was like, oh my!
No, it's a big deal. I wasn't able to actually get to any of the the repeat performances where I am in Wisconsin. I did actually had tickets for Batman in concert, but they canceled the Minneapolis concert for some reason.
I wish that came around here, because I went to see the Superman one, and the Superman one was great for the first Christopher Reeve Superman.
Yeah, and again, the music is spectacular, and that was fun as well. I got to give a copy of the book to Danny Elfman at New York Comic Con.
Nice.
And And then I also was able to get a copy, to Sam Hamm, Sam being the screenwriter, and got a very nice note back from him. It's something where that film changed everything in terms of how Hollywood viewed superheroes, in terms of whether they would green light more serious pictures. We had projects that were digging further down into the list of viable comics properties than just the superhero titles. We already had in production Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie when Batman comes out, but you can definitely point to things like the Rocketeer and say, okay, this is not a picture that's going to come out without Batman back here. This is a small press comic book and a period piece on top of that, and they did it straight. And certainly you get movies that are much more serious and dark. The Crow that comes out in '94. Yeah, that's just 5 years after this. Again, small press comic book. There's no way in the world you would have seen a picture like that without Batman in front of it.
So that was going to be my next question, is like, why do you think this movie and Returns, probably more, maybe I'm just biased, but more than any of the other Batman movies, has like caught on with the public so much? Is it just that this, the first one at least, set the standard for basically all the modern superhero movies we've gotten in the last 30 years?
There's a generational thing. I think also that interregnum there between serious comic book movies plays a big role. Nobody that was in my college age audience for Batman '89 was driving when Superman 78 came out. Nobody drove to that movie. This was our Star Wars in terms of superhero films. There had just been a big wait before that, and of course so there's a demand and a need, and it met that need in a lot of ways. I think you get because the movies take so long to make, and it was so many years between pictures. You have it's a bit easier to group these two pictures together and say that they're separate from the Schumacher pictures. There's a bit more of a James Bond dynamic to it, where these are the two serious movies, and then we have the lighter ones that followed. That if you want to look at it and say, okay, there's kind of a Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan dynamic going on here. Less serious, very serious, slightly more or slightly less serious, and then of course Batman and Robin is not serious at all.
No.
But again, it's easier to look at these things separately. Also, Tim Burton in particular, just the style of a filmmaker he is, and the mood that he introduces, and the themes that he goes with, and what you kind of want to see by the end of the pictures are unique to these two films. You kind of want these broken people to get some resolution, and you kind of see that what separates Bruce Wayne from Catwoman or the Penguin or obviously the Joker is he's got an Alfred behind him. He's not alone. He's got somebody who is sort of standing by him and teaching him a thing or two about his value system. I think that that was something that we tried to really play into with Resurrection with our version of Clayface, because we went back to the golden age for the actor version of Clayface, Carlo, but we did not make him the exact same character. We made him what I perceived would have been a much more Burton-esque figure, a tragic character, not somebody who's on top of the acting world and trying to maintain his position. I wanted to make him somebody who was kind of a never was, somebody who was, he's got talent, but he's overlooked. As a consequence of this freak incident that gives him these grotesque, features and powers, to put him in a position where he could actually, try to use, what he can do to achieve his dreams before he realizes, this is really still a nightmare.
Yeah, and I like the connection between him and the Smilex and all the chemicals. And I'm not going to spoil it, but the other character who's...
absolutely.
Yeah. Which, with that character, a lot of times in other stories, I'm like, okay, I see it coming. I didn't see it coming here. I was like, well done, sir.
Oh, yeah. No, and I made sure to keep that character out of all of the PR. Because this book is a mystery.
Yes.
And, we're actually in that character's head for a good chunk of the book before you find out, what's going on. And again, the thing with it is, because we know the rules of the Burton movies, we know that there's no real superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at it and I said, okay, yeah, but Smilex is our vehicle, or it's our tool that we can use, because we do see how fast that can change a human being.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, that will be my mechanism. And I'll just do a twist off of that, to bring in Clayface.
Yeah, I was like, oh yes, Clayface, yes, and like I said, the twist, I was like, oh, I didn't see it coming. It was so good. But and again, like a lot of the stuff you were saying, like from the first movie, it's like, why did the Joker say, oh, I was just a kid when I killed your parents? Did he know it was Bruce Wayne?
Yeah. And that's literally in my review from '89. And again, it's a throwaway line that was ad-libbed or just didn't connect to anything. It's not in the shooting script. It's not in anything else. There's little bits like that are there. We actually have a nod to a line that didn't appear in the movie, but that was in the shooting script and also the novelization. You have the whole scene where Joker's in the helicopter leaving the Axis Chemicals, and he says, "Up in the air, Junior Birdman missed me. Ha 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 ha. Watch me." And we're like, okay, well, what was that line about? And that line was, there was a line in between there where he says, I'm going to be at the parade tonight, and I'm going to kill 1,000 people an hour until you show up. And that's again, you could find that line in I think it's in both the adaptations. They just cut it because time is an issue, but also it gives away what his plan is, and I think they decided not to do that. But the other ends of that line are gone. We've got kind of a stub of a scene in Vicky's apartment where he shoots Bruce Wayne and then just leaves. Says a little poem and he leaves a present for Vicky Vale. Well, if you read the novelization, if you read the script, you'll see that there was a whole big sequence where he kidnaps her and takes her to a a bicentennial celebration in
And
daylight.
Bruce chasing down on horseback. Yeah.
Racing down on horseback
Yes.
after changing in the car.
Yes.
And so I decided, well, what I'll do is I'll do a couple of winks to this. And so one of them is him changing in the car. We get into that. But also the notion that there needs to be a daytime suit, because one of the reasons they didn't want to do the whole sketch, time was a issue, but also, as I understand it, the tests for the suit did not look good in daylight, and so we have a nod to that, and there's a nod to that missing line, as I was mentioning earlier, from the helicopter, where we have a sequence where Batman is talking to Commissioner Gordon, and he recounts that the Joker said that line, "I'm going to kill 1,000 people an hour," to one of his henchmen that they ended up questioning later. And so that line got in through the back door.
And I also love in this book, you have him experimenting with new forms of vehicles and stuff, because it's like, the Batwing. It's like, where are you going to land that thing? If you're in the city.
You can't imagine there being a Batman movie or miniseries or whatever the equivalent of this is without there being a new vehicle or two.
Yes.
And we've got at least two.
And I just heard a theory like a few weeks ago. I mean, as an expert, maybe you've heard this. What do you think? The theory I heard was if Joker had not killed Bob towards the end of the movie, Joker may have survived. Because Bob was always there for him and helping him out, and maybe.
Well, yeah, Bob's is certainly a lucky charm. There you go. Well, I mean, that was something where even back in the day, I had tried to work that into into the theory in my mind of how would he have made his escape. When does he make his when does he make his decision switching between deciding to face Batman down in the street to I'm gonna go make this last stand on the tower, and I remember thinking, well, maybe I could do something with Bob, maybe I could do something with the Joker's float is a giant cake. It's, who knows what's in that thing, and what I ultimately settled on is the plot that you see in the book, and I decided to let Bob rest in peace.
Yeah, I mean, Bob's the perfect example. I always say, I'm like, why would any person work for the Joker? I'm like, you could be the perfect lackey. You could do it. You can perform your job perfectly, and he still could shoot you on any given day. And
this is something that comes up in the book, where they're discussing what were the motivations of these people, and again, these are the kinds of serious questions that you would never really ask in a mile-a-minute movie, and you would never do outside something like this, where we've got 400 pages. We can get into things like the logistics of how Batman's mechanisms work, what his relationship with Commissioner Gordon, working relationship with him is after he's regarded as an ally. Likewise, Harvey Dent. Working with Harvey Dent, how closely can they really be working and still Harvey get any convictions? And again, not the sort of thing that would ever come up in a movie, but it's not a movie, and that's the thing is we want to use each medium to its own advantage. And again, this ends up having an impact in the portrayal of the characters. The way that Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne and Batman sounds on the screen, where he's just very terse, doesn't say much. You can only really do that on screen, or to a degree on the comics page. If you're in his mind in the novel for pages and pages at a time, you have a different kind of relationship with that character, and you're hearing him a lot more often. And so the trick is to still stay consistent with that, but deal with the fact that you're actually you're along for the ride. You're in the back seat here.
And the other thing about the book gave you more room for is I liked Knox was like more part of the team and kind of in this thing, because even watching the movie, I'm just like, man, did they like cut like scenes for him? Because I was like, I don't know, it seems like he should be in the movie more, but.
As I understand it, he was originally significantly more in, it's one of those things where various reasons. I'm sure the thing with me is he was who I identified with when that film came out, because I was a journalism student. I was the editor of my campus paper. And I was a smart aleck, and so his dialogue was really, really easy to get into.
So was he the self-insert character where you're just like,
but not so much that. It was just I first of all,
I knew exactly what he'd say. Yes,
he would always make 2 more jokes than were necessary. And Vicky would let him know about it. I also understood what the demands of his job were. And there's a whole sequence. There's one of the chapters that I like is there are chapters that my editor and I particularly enjoyed where, there's not a lot of action going on, but it's interaction between Bruce and Alfred at the kitchen table, interaction between Bruce and Knox in the newsroom, places where we're actually getting into if you were somebody like Knox, you might be wanting to help Bruce Wayne, but at the same time you've got a job. At the same time you've got readers that depend on you. At the same time, you've got different things pulling against you, and this is one of the reasons that I think the book goes to some length to suggest that Batman's relationship with Gordon is different than his relationship with Knox, is different from his relationship with Harvey Dent. And that Bruce, likewise, is different in how he behaves around Knox than he would be around somebody else. And it's again because each of these gentlemen have their own points of view, their own jobs, their own drives, their own things that they've got to be responsible to, and so. I wanted to have a Bruce Wayne Batman that we're always thinking, and always sort of triangulating. Well, who can I go to this contact as? Because sometimes it's going to be easier to go as Batman. Sometimes it's going to be easier to go as Bruce Wayne. We have one sequence where he both Batman and Bruce Wayne visit the same location in the same chapter, getting information from 2 different people, because he knew that would work. And again, a more active Bruce Wayne is something that we do get in the movies. I think people that think that Bruce Wayne is just a recluse are only watching the first movie, because we get the notion in the second film that he's an active part. By then, he's an active part of Gotham City politics and Gotham City civic life, because you see the whole sequence with him and Max Schreck saying, the mayor and I see eye to eye on this, and we're going to stop you. So this is very much not. This is not the Playboy Bruce Wayne, I don't think.
No, I mean, there's little elements, but he's a more fleshed out character. I mean, the closest thing is just, like when they talk about, like Alfred or someone talks about, or even Vicky, like these, like, little flings, like that's the only Playboy persona, maybe like the Julie Madison thing.
And see, I didn't approach it, and again we get into this. I didn't approach that as, Michael Keaton's Batman would necessarily be, or Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne would be using relationships as camouflage. That's. I don't think that's him. I don't think he necessarily needs to do that. Nobody really knows what's going on. Remember, that's also a major difference here. 1989, we've got tabloid newspapers, we've got paparazzi, but we don't have the social media that the Christopher Nolan Bruce Wayne is having to, fake out. With
taking the whole dance troupe, yeah.
So there you go. And so again, I'm working on these books. I'm just always conscious of this is a particular flavor of Batman.
Is that always so that's always in the back of your mind? It's like, oh, everyone doesn't have a cell phone. Everyone does. Oh yeah. And I'm. There's just certain sorts of things that would just not work. And then I would look at things like, well, would he have a direct line to Commissioner Gordon yet? Probably not now. Yeah, that was the thing with 66 with me. I was like, man, how'd they get that line from Wayne Manor to the police commissioner's office? But that's it. Yeah, that's the other thing. There were no social media or anything back then. But I'm just like in the movie, I'm just like, wouldn't at least some like they had to like look up the death of Bruce Wayne's parents? I'm like, weren't they well known and well established in Gotham? And
well, what they were looking up is they were looking up the street corner.
Yeah,
and again. Because I was doing research back then on microfilm readers the same way they would have been doing, that would have been tough, because you would have been relying on indexes that the newspaper in its morgue would have, actually that came up while we were writing the book because I used the phrase the newspaper's morgue, and I think one of the proofreaders didn't know that word in association with. In association with newspapers, because they don't have them quite like that anymore.
It's all digitized now, probably.
Yeah, and so I think that would be very. And again, I just have to be very careful with the technology. The notion is Batman has more than everybody else. Bruce Wayne has more than everybody else.
But it's still 1989.
The Joker clearly has some toys that other people don't have, but also sort of the player characters. Even though the fashion is still retro, it's still very 40s. You see Alexander Knox with a tape recorder, but nobody else has one, or very few other people. And so there's this sort of mishmash.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Batman stories, like Batman the Animated Series, very anachronistic, where it's like there's little elements of everything you really can't. Is that good because it kind of keeps the story timeless in a way, or
it's about the flavor?
Okay,
it's got to feel like it belongs. And so you get into these things where you say, okay, yeah, if I were to throw in a Batman character from the 2020s, that wouldn't feel like it fit.
Wow, yeah. Huh.
I was always asking myself, what would Tim Burton do?
Yes.
And but also, what would they have done on screen? The mechanism for how Clayface's transformations would work. I was like, okay, well, this is almost certainly going to be practical effects in 1989 or 90 or whatever it was, and also it's going to be, since it's Burton, it's going to be much more of a Universal Monsters approach. Tragic Phantom of the Opera kind of a thing, and it's not going to be the shambling, puddle of goo that you get in some of the later versions. And again, anything else wouldn't have felt like it fit.
Yeah. Huh. And all right. Before we run out of time, so you did say there is a follow up novel to this coming sometime. It's in the back it says fall 2025. So
yeah, Batman Revolution is a direct sequel to this. It will take place before Returns.
Okay.
There's a lot of territory in between these two films. 3 years just in between the releases. We already know from Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, you can jam a lot of stories in between those two. And I have no desire to burn up a lot of real estate, when it's possible to do something more compact. And again, that just comes from me having worked for Star Wars and Star Trek and other things all these years. I tend to be, a good steward with the national parks that they loan to me. And I try not to leave footprints everywhere, or use up everything, unless they say, "Hey, we want you to write the entire year's worth of stories." I wrote the Star Trek Discovery novel called The Enterprise War, which was literally about where Captain Pike's Enterprise was during the first season of Discovery, the whole first season.
Wow.
And so that was a case where, all right, I wrote a story that took a year. Even so, there's room in there for other stories to fall.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that was kind of the key is, they tell you, and then if they don't tell you, as in this case, you just sort of say to yourself, okay, well, what opportunities do I want to leave available for other writers, including me?
And I'm sure we're going to see certain, you set up a mystery character at the end and you kind of drop a line that says who that's going to be. So are we going to see that character in the next novel?
I think that's a fairly safe guess.
Yes. Nice. Yeah. Cause that character never showed up in the Burton movies. So that was like, oh,
we'll leave that there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, again, Batman has many rogues.
Yep.
I think, the one time we talked to Mark Waid, he said, I guess this stat is true. He said Batman is the fictional character who's had the most stories written about him in like human history.
Oh wow!
Because again, monthly comics, so.
Well, you're talking about probably 5,000 comic books, which that's a lot. But still. I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on what you consider a story to be.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Look, the soap opera Guiding Light was on for 70 years. There were 18,000 peanut strips with Charlie Brown and Snoopy. What counts as a story, you know? And so it's maybe
superhero. Maybe
superhero.
Probably him or Superman.
Well, yeah, it's superhero is much more likely, but again, it would depend on the year. You go back to 1975, for example, and it's a race between whether Richie Rich or Archie has the most comics out about him. In fact, I think that there's a fair shot that Archie's got more than Batman.
Oh,
just because Archie was the star of sometimes 10, 15 titles at once. But again, that's just in the United States. That's just within comics. It's just once you go beyond that, far be it for me to disagree with Mr. Wade. But my guess is once you expand out the definition beyond comics, who knows?
That'll be a lot of number crunching. God, you got to figure that out.
So it's fun for somebody.
Oh, yeah. All right. I will let you go. Thank you so much. Again, I heard this book was coming out. I had to read it. Then I read it. I'm like, I have to speak to this man. Then I saw the sequels coming. I said, next year, if you're up for it, I would love to have you back, talk about the next one.
Well, I greatly appreciate it. This is my last podcast of 2024, so it's the last one of this whole cycle on this book, and at least until the trade paperback comes out, which is not anytime soon because we've just gone to the third printing on the hardcover. So so we're still going here, which I'm happy about. It's always a weird time of year because the shows are winding down, and I'm scheduling next year's, and now we're finally snowed in, so I get to write the next book, or I am writing the next book, but I get to focus entirely on it for a while. But it is the reception that we have gotten from the community of Batman fans. Just wonderful. And again, it's both new for me, and it's also coming back home to something because again, I was a fan before any of this, and it just so happens that I have 20 years between my superhero projects. I wrote Iron Man for a year back in the 2000s.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes. And then I went off and did Star Wars and Star Trek, and I come back into it again with Batman, again it has just been really enjoyable. Getting to write something set on Earth again.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, when it's something that's like so long ago, and I'm just like, oh yeah, he was that guy who wrote that story, that Iron Man story. Yeah. I'm still waiting for Marvel to actually reprint all those comics.
They've reprinted the couple that were like the Avengers Disassembled Prelude issues, but the whole year before that is still sitting out there just in digital and back issue form, and they'll get to it. It's just they've got 40 years of comics they're dropping a chunk at a time, and it's going to be Epic Collection Volume whatever the heck. Whenever it comes out.
Yeah, it's so weird because they reprint everything now, and then they of course
they don't do it in order.
No.
They skip around. So
yeah, it seems like there's a period in the 90s and like the 2000s where they're still playing catch up on.
That's exactly right. And they skipped ahead to do I think 2 books in Iron Man Volume 3, which is where I'm at, and still more than half of that series is reprinted, but who knows?
Yeah.
And when people want to find it, when it does come out, I will certainly announce it. Farawaypress.com, that's my website. I got essays on those Iron Man issues and lots of other things.
Okay.
And then social media, John Jackson Miller on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram. Farawaypress.com on Blue Sky, and JJM Faraway on the Bird site.
Say you're professional now. I was going to say, anything you have to promote, you got it down.
Yep. That's obviously the book is out now. Big thing we've got coming out in I think it's March is it's the Old Republic Knights of the Old Republic Volume 1, the Omnibus, is getting its reprint. Our last price on those was like $300. So yeah, having that then come out again. Now that was a special edition that was signed by everybody, but that thing sold like gangbusters 3 years ago and is completely out everywhere. So that is going back to press, and I'm happy to see that. And then also in stores now, Star Wars: The Living Force, my most recent Star Wars novel. Its trade paperback is out. The hardcover is still out as well. Grab the Barnes & Noble special edition because that's got the big color map in it.
All right, kids. So John Jackson Miller, he's writing, he's making appearances, so he's not sleeping. So yes, go pick up this stuff. Make it work as well. All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.